Meeting scheduled for Tuesday, May 12th, 2015. I'd like to sit two members. Rich, will you sit in for Alan, and you sit in for Kurt? First order of business is a 8-3 referral application by Gerard Brothers, part of the River Bend Holdings LLC. Mike, you're on stage. Of course, the name and...
Good evening. My name is Mike Gerard. I'm president of Gerard Brothers Corporation, which is the applicant, and also president of Simsbury Farms, which is the future tenant of the property. First of all, I want to thank the Commission for the opportunity to come forward tonight and for our referral, and hopefully we can give you some good information about what's going on up in 80 Wolcott Road. As most of you know, the charrette we had a few years ago included our property on Iron Horse Boulevard for housing. So we've been working diligently with a team of professionals to try to get that moving and try to get that developed as multifamily residential. In the meantime, we have to find a place to go to move our business, which has really been a challenge. We looked in Granby, we looked in Bloomfield, we looked in East Granby, and we really want to stay in Simsbury. By chance, last fall, the property on 80 Wolcott Road came up for sale. I had my eyes on it, and Imperial moved out, and it's the property that Imperial is using to propagate plants, to seedlings, to grow them, and the building on the property and so forth. And I made a deal with River Bend to purchase it, and I'm in the process of going through the approval process because we needed zone change from I-1 to I-2, and we're obviously looking for our site plan approval and also our sign approval. A referral tonight to the zoning for our public hearing on the 18th. We decided to stay in Simsbury because we wanted to stay in Simsbury, and there were some attractive properties out of town, but like I said, we were very pleased to be able to find this piece. The location of the piece is in a spot in Simsbury, right alongside the airport, and a phone on, and on the other side is the landfill. And basically, for the type of work that we do and what we have, it's probably a very good location. We think it's a good location for this kind of use. It's about a little under 10 acres. And we also eventually want to move our office from 2 Farms Village Road to 80 Wolcott also. The first move would be the shop, which would be developed, and then we would move the building, our office building. The plan that I left on the table there for you basically shows a picture of what we were planning with regards to a building. And I'll start with this, and then I'll bring Lally up here to discuss talk about the, I'm going to do this. Here we go, okay. Talk about the site plan. This building is about 6,000 square feet of shop, and this would be the north view from the north side, from the phone-on side. This would be from the west side, and then of course this is the back and the front. And what we've done is we've designed the building so that it kind of shelters the industrial part of the building. And we've also, as you'll see in the site plan, we're planning some landscaping that will help, I won't say hide it, but as we have on Iron Horse, the trees. If you didn't stop and look in the stop sign, you probably wouldn't notice we were there. But we're going to have construction materials and equipment and all the normal things that we do in our line of work. The office is about 6,000 square feet, plus there's an additional 7,500 square feet on the property now. The building was built in 1989, perfectly able to be used for storage. It's heated, and so there's the loading docks and everything else, so we'll use that for probably materials. And that's just about it for that's the building. It's basically a butler building. We were thinking about using solar panels on the roof. It's got the right exposure, so we're talking about doing that. This roof allows that to be done. That type of roof allows it to be done, so that's in the cards too. So I'd like to introduce now Ed Lally, who will explain what we're doing with the site.
Thank you. For the record, Ed Lally, licensed professional engineer and land surveyor. Mike has been asked us to participate with him on the Iron Horse Boulevard property, which is, as you said, moving in the right direction, and on the creation of this plan. The Phonon property is in this location. The existing building is here, and the property as it currently exists is in that shape. It's in the I-1 zone, contains 9.79 acres, so it's non-conforming as to the requirements of the I-1 zone, which requires, as Mike had mentioned, 10 acres. And Phonon is located here, and they're also severely non-conforming because they only have about an acre and a half, 1.54 acres. As part of this overall plan, Mike is going to deed to them about 0.4 acres and allow them to expand their parking lot, and I'll speak to that in a moment. His proposed new building is in this location with the office building here, screening, as he mentioned, the more industrial use. There's a salt storage shed way in the back of the building. Existing vegetation is shown in green around the property lines, and that will stay. This is the airport property, and the runway is about in this location. There's a few existing evergreens in here, and these evergreens are going to be enhanced and a berm elevated a little bit because these evergreens are at grade. We can only raise that ever so slightly behind them. There'll be a new berm with some shade trees in here, and again a new berm here. To separate the Phonon from the industrial side of this building, there'll be a row of evergreens planted in this location and a berm placed in front of the parking lot for the Phonon property. There's a few lights positioned on short poles, 14-foot poles. They're dark star compliant, fully shielded. They're meant to light the parking lot. There'll be a few lights on the building in the back, just pointing down again to light the use area. Excuse me. The pavement will come back to about this location from the street. There'll be 3 points of access. The existing drive will be maintained. The new drive will be built to the south. The mostly heavy equipment will come into this area, mostly cars, visitors to the office, and employees will come into this area with parking in through here, and again some parking here. And Mike's larger pieces of equipment, tracked vehicles, etc., will be stored on the gravel area here with earth materials through there and some construction material here, so for instance pipes or catch basins, sumps, things like that. None of the piles will ever exceed the height of the building or the height of the zoning requirements, and will be pretty much screened by the existing vegetation and the fact that the site's quite flat, so your line of sight over that vegetation as it goes away from the road. The plan has been developed to meet all of the requirements of the zoning regulations, and I took a look at the Town of Simsbury future land use plan today, and the Simsbury Airport area and this property in particular are shown as industrial. It's industrial zoned. We're changing the zone from industrial 1 to industrial 2 to eliminate some nonconformances and to allow this use, which is judged as industrial, to exist here. So it'll be in conformance with the plan of development. Design review is happy with it. Zoning, we hope, will be, we've had a lot of meetings with staff to work out some of the details, and when we're all done, we will address any comments that they have. If you have any questions, Mike or I on the site, try and answer them.
You mentioned that the proposed change from I-1 to I-2
Yes.
will bring both lots into compliance?
There's no, this lot, there is no area requirement in the I-2 zone. It's fully by side yard and use. You take your use and you back into the size of the property by coverages and setbacks and things like that. So the I-2 has no area requirement. So this, which is just slightly non-conforming, will become conforming as to area, and it is conforming as to frontage and other aspects in either zone. This property is only an acre and a half, and the requirement in the current zone is 10 acres. There are other non-conformances here, mostly approved by Zoning Board of Appeals, or perhaps all approved by Zoning Board of Appeals. That will be lessened, those non-conformances will be lessened by our plan, but ever so slightly. The major thing about that property is that they are desperately in need of parking in order to stay here. And so this is perfect for both of us.
Ed, you may have mentioned it, but what was the non-conforming aspect of this piece of property?
This one?
Yes. Area.
There's a requirement in the I-1 zone of 10.0 acres, and this is 9.74. It's just slightly non-conforming, but it's non-conforming.
So if we push it down to I-2, you're within compliance.
Right, and you can't, you can't increase your nonconformance. So we could never sell a piece of property to Phonon in the I-1 zone, because that would increase our nonconformance, and then Phonon's stuck between a rock and a hard place.
I see. So both pieces
Yeah.
need to go.
Yeah, and your next item is Phonon, and I can talk about that when the time comes.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
The sign,
Pardon?
the sign, do you want to talk about?
Oh, the sign location is identical to the sign that Mike has at his current place of business. It's about 4x8 with a little frame around it. I think you have a detail down further in the package.
And appropriate size, correct?
Yeah, and it'll be located with some low scale lighting and some landscaping, and it'll look good.
That's a conforming site?
I believe it is.
It's exactly the same size as the sign I have now at Armstrong Road.
Understood, yeah. But doesn't mean that one's conforming.
I went through all the process when we did that, and that sign was put up in 1989. Has since been hit by a car and replaced since then, maybe at least once. And we've also replaced the sign a couple of times, and we've all gone through the process here at the town to do what we need to do. So I assume that everything is still...
Yeah, you touched on a couple elements of the plan of conservation and development, the future vision of the town. One item that caught my eye, and maybe you can comment on that, is there's a desire to protect and enhance the major gateway approaches to town. And Walcott Road / airport is designated as one of those locations. And the enhancements would be through the use of landscaping, maintaining a buffer, town identification signage. That's your part. But as far as buffering, you mentioned a little bit of the landscaping.
Right.
In your opinion, do you feel that supports the POCD policy?
Yes, this landscaping in here will be a raised berm. This is fairly good vegetation, and we're doubling up on the landscaping in that location. We couldn't choke the driveway down too much because we did a sightline study, and the sightline distances for a large vehicle with an excavator on a trailer behind it are a lot longer than for a car, so the public safety dictates that we can't choke that down too much, but we've done it as much as we can, and that one tree actually is supposed to be removed. It was colored by mistake to have a proper sightline distance, but we have a berm and a berm and a berm and a berm. This building exists. This building has been made to be, I think, quite attractive. If you look at Mike's existing building and the new building, they're not terribly different, and that new building has been designed to be larger on both ends and taller than the industrial building. So if you are looking at it, you will see very little, if any, of the industrial component of that building. You'll see what looks like a very large house more than anything.
Currently, I think there's a chain link fence parallel to the road.
Okay, I'm sorry I didn't address that. There is a chain link fence all along the road. That's being removed. The chain link fence is being maintained around through here, but then it's being brought up through here and across here and then a little bit in here. And this will be entirely behind the vegetation. This is set back, I forgot, 80 or 100 feet from the
100
road.
feet because you need 100 feet to get the equipment. Some trailers in off the street right away, and it's extra wide also, so you can get a
So
trailer.
you could drive a full rig in there with an excavator on the back or something. His biggest equipment will come in there and fully into the site before it comes to the fence. So the fence is pushed quite a ways back. So that vista you see right now is going to be changed quite a bit.
Improved.
Yeah, I believe.
The south side there where you have existing greenway?
Yeah.
Right. What's that right now? Because that's the sight line that's going to be most exposed.
Yeah.
You got
It's pretty dense trees, and you can't really see through it, and there's field on the other side. If you look at the...
Evergreens or?
They're a combination of all different types of trees and brush and...
And about 2/3 of it is on the town's property.
I mean, that's the side that's going to be the worst because
As you come up.
the industry right next to you and the airport is going to block you coming in from the north. And we're pretty well in harmony with what we have in the general area already, all things considered.
Yeah,
It's just that sudden exposure.
We have no
we're
disturbance
concerned
proposed.
about.
There's a little bit of a gap here where the vegetation's a little iffy, but we have no disturbance of any vegetation. In fact, we have a very shallow drainage swale. parallels the swale that the DEP required Mike to put in on the Iron Horse Boulevard site. And we've ringed the site with this very shallow drainage swale. We pulled it back from the existing property line and the vegetation, so we don't even disturb roots of those trees. And that drainage swale brings, all sheet runoff comes down into a settling pond that's 24 times larger than required by DEP for that purpose, because we wanted to make sure that all the silt that might be disturbed, you know, I mean, Mike's got active earthwork piles, and then suddenly it's a thunderstorm. You're gonna get some siltation picked up, and we're catching it all.
Right.
So
The other thing, excuse me, but one other thing Ed didn't mention is that we dug test pits on the site, and we went down 14 feet. There was no groundwater whatsoever, and it's pure sand, pure granular sand. So anything, most of what hits the ground and what's run into the catch basins will go through a basically perk right into the ground.
So that pond there doesn't discharge anywhere, it's just basically collection and then infiltration into the groundwater?
Yes, and I don't think, there won't be much water getting to that pond. Most of it will go straight down.
all of the roofs, all of the paved areas, and a portion, not a good portion because it goes all the way back here, but a portion of the gravel drains to catch basins, and there's, I think, 10 of them, 9 or 10 of them around the site. Those catch basins are all interconnected with a 24-inch diameter perforated pipe set in a stone bed wrapped in filter fabric. And so it's essentially a septic system on steroids. And
That's already in place, or that's going to be in place?
that's proposed.
I see.
On Phonon, there's some of that existing, but on this site, there's none. And that's proposed, and we have extra deep sumps on the catch basins. And all of the water up to and including a 25-year storm goes into that area and goes either stores in the pipe or stores in the voids of the stone, and over time, and not very long time because it's pretty poor soil,
Right.
goes into the soil. And we've designed the absorption rate. The absorption rate on these soils, or the conductivity of water through the soil, permeability, is about 100 to 120 inches per hour, and we've used 20 in our calculations, so it's about 6 times a factor safety.
So we're going to have really deep sumps, because you're going to be all gravel and bulk materials that are going to find their way toward these catch basins.
Right, well,
We're gonna have
the
deep
bulk
sumps.
materials don't drain towards the catch basin sumps or the pipes.
I see.
Just the pavement and a little bit of this gravel area. The pavement and the rooftops and a little bit of this gravel area drain towards the catch basin. The balance of the water, the slope of the land is down towards this.
Correct.
The balance of the surface would flow into this. And that is bigger because it has not only a siltation collection component, but an absorption and a detention component. Because the bottom could be silted in, we counted the absorption as 0, but there will be absorption.
So everything is going to weep back to that pond.
Right.
For the southern border there.
Right.
All right.
And there's a drainage study that's been submitted to the town that looks at all the different storms.
Any other questions?
Not for me.
Hearing no other questions, comments, any?
I honestly think this is a good use for this property, being it's just kind of there and almost fallow and looking not too good. I mean, put in a beautiful building that they designed up here, I think will really enhance the gateway aspect of Walker Road in the long run, and keep a good corporate resident in Simsbury.
Agreed. Any other comments, Jim?
We're going to hear both applications and then,
It really, but, it might not be not a bad idea to do that and then decide to vote on them separately or make recommendations on them separately if you want, but then you'll have the whole picture. If he does it from one piece.
Do we have any more comments on this application? I'd just like to make one comment that I think it's a great move, because it's enhancing what we want to do here in the downtown center area. And of course, we want to keep you in town.
Thank you.
And considering it is conducive and appropriate to everyone else who's in that area. We have a few other construction yards in that space, along with the nurseries. It's not going to impact the airport at all. So I'm quite in favor of it. If we don't have any other comments, we'll move on to the second application, which is a referral an 8-3 referral for the Phonon Corporation. Changing the zone, asking for a referral on the zone change from I-1 to I-2 at 90 Wolfett. Ed, you're going to speak for this?
Yes, I am, thank you. I'm the applicant on that application, and I'm speaking for the owner. Phonon Corporation has been here for a little while. At 90 Wolcott, they have a 1.54 acre site, and they're very, very successful. If you go onto their website, you will be amazed, at least I was, at what they do, where they do it, and some of the stuff I'm sure is not even told looking at what they do tell you. But it's an exceedingly high-tech company that pays very well and has attracted a lot of employees, and their manufacturing or their development programs don't take up a lot of space. And so their building is good enough for them, big enough for them, but they are desperately in need of parking spaces. And they were thinking about having valet parking or even off-site parking and buying a, like an airport van and shuffle their guys back and forth. And it was decided that that wasn't going to work. And our fear was that they were going to leave the town, but they don't want to. And so all of a sudden, this just clicked. Riverbend decides to sell, Mike decides to buy. He doesn't need everything that he's purchasing, though he needs most of it, but they don't need much. They need 0.4 acres. And by changing this zone from I-1 to I-2, and there's a separate application for each property, we will eliminate the nonconformance that they're about 8.5 acres shy of where they're supposed to be. By being an I-2, they conform as to lot area. The other requirements are setback from the property line, and the existing parking lot comes up to about this far from the parking lot. And there's no room for any intervening vegetation. We put the property line a bit further away from the new parking lot. We've designed this with sheet flow, and it blends right into Mike's parking lot. The elevations on their proposed parking lot and the elevations on Mike's proposed parking lot are within a half a foot of each other. And there's space in between to have a row of screening vegetation. So they gain a net of 30 parking spaces. The town zoning regulations require 81 parking spaces for this site. They need more than that. They need pretty much the whole 122 they're going to end up with. And so they're very happy to have this happen. So we have an application for a zone change, and then we have an application for a revision to an approved site plan. Because they did have site plan approved and then a modification, and et cetera, and now this would bring them into conformance, give them the parking they need to stay here, and works perfectly with Mike's plans. The storm drainage system is very similar to Mike's, except that their site is much more urban, if I can use that term, much more developed, and they have an existing set of catch basins along here that go into a leaching system that's very similar to a septic system. And what we're doing is putting 3 basins along here and connecting it with, I think in this case, a 30-inch pipe. In a 25-year storm, there is absolutely no ponding of water in their parking lot. And that's a pretty big storm. In a 50-year storm, there would be 14 hundredths of a foot ponding right at the catch basin. And the ponding would spread out about 7 to 8 feet around the catch basin. And then after about a half an hour to 45 minutes, that will be dry. There's a new berm along the street with flowering trees and shrubs. There's no new lighting, and the new parking is screened from Michael and from the street as well. So I think it also enhances the gateway aspect of your plan of development. If you have any questions, I'll try and answer them. This one's a little simple.
So in between that new piece, that little cutout, that's going to be pretty much level, or are you going to put a berm in between your 2 properties with the plant growth on it?
That's only going to raise up a foot or so.
Just so not really a berm.
Right.
Just some,
But it's pretty mature evergreen
problem, but just a screen.
Seems like a home run.
Agree.
Well, since we don't have any other comments or questions for the applicants, do I hear a motion on the first application, which is the 8-3 referral for the Gerard Brother Corporation?
That's 80.
That's 80 Wolcott. changing from a zone I-1 to a zone I-2. On the assessor's map 102, block 439, lot 009. Here
Can I ask Hiram a question, please?
Please.
Hiram, on this proposed referral language, item number 5 for Phonon property refers to the POCD.
Phone on, Bill, or do you want to start with the other one?
It doesn't really matter. I think the reference is the same in both of them.
Yeah.
It talks about the economic development POCD, policy 2, 3, 4, 6, and 8.
Correct.
Are those the policies in the economic development section of the POCD?
Correct. Yeah.
All right, I think we should take a look at those.
I can state those for you if you'd like, right? You can do that right now. Number 2, for example, is reduce the tax burden on property owners by diversifying Simsbury's tax base and by growing the grand list through economic development strategies, which is more of a general term, but it's what's happening here, in my opinion.
Okay, I challenge that
Okay.
because we're not improving the tax base, we're maintaining it.
Well, I think okay, and you should welcome that. I think ultimately, long-term, this will allow here is a vacation of this property downtown to.
Correct.
So
The
the
enhancement
ultimate
of the
use of the
downtown
downtown
property.
piece. That was my thinking long-term, but that's up to you, whatever you like. Number 3 is understand the net economic impact of new development in the town of Simsbury. And that's longer term, the net economic impact as well.
Again, I don't see the direct tie-in. You know, you can make a case long-term with other pieces of the puzzle falling into place, but not this application specifically.
Okay. Number 4 is encourage economic development to harmonize with the natural surroundings, adjoining uses, and any surrounding residential uses. Now, there are no surrounding residential uses in this case, but the surrounding other uses are compatible with regard to the phonon activity in the current zone of industrial.
Yep.
Number 6 is amend the zoning and subdivision regulations in a manner that will responsibly foster a dynamic and prosperous business climate. Number 8 is
Can
encourage.
we talk about that one?
Sure.
We're not really amending any zoning or subdivision regulations in this case.
You know, you're making a recommendation to the zoning commission for that, so.
For a zoning change.
Yeah. Amend the
So
zoning.
we're not changing the regular, or is that zone, like the zoning map part of the regulation?
Exactly, Bill. It's the text or the map makes up the regulations together. So if this property changes from I-1 to I-2, that's technically a change in the regs.
Okay.
Yeah. And then 8 is encourage non-residential zones to be centered around major transportation routes and facilities. And I don't know if you would decide that this is major or not, but the applicants made the argument on a number of occasions that the activity with regard to trucks in and out of this site and the ability to get to where they're going more quickly rather than going through the center of town is not a bad thing at all either. So I just offer those for your consideration. If you think they fit, that's fine. Those are my suggestions.
I think that new building may enhance the tax base a little bit.
Good.
It's no total zero.
But we'll be tearing down the old one.
No,
No?
my office on 2 Farm Village Road is
On
staying.
Iron Horse.
No,
Oh, yes.
both, but there's 2 properties involved here. We're building 6,000 square feet of office, I have 4,000 square feet over there. I'm gonna move this building right here, this operation, and the tax money, and the tax we pay on the equipment and all the vehicles, up to another location in town. Plus, that project that's gonna be built on Iron Horse is probably around
that one was
$25 to $30 million.
So
So-
overall, the entire,
It's really, there's definitely, my opinion, there's definitely an improvement in the tax base.
Hiram, are we allowed to consider the interaction between the 2 properties like this? Bill brings up an interesting point that I hadn't considered, that even though on the surface it seems like a home run because you're supplementing to a new location in town, which is more conducive to everybody, and you're also vacating a piece of property where we want to enhance the town center, which we've been trying to do forever, so it's an impetus to do that. But it's not necessarily related to the application of moving to that site. And following the POCD, do we have to just consider the impact of that site, not the related sites? That,
In my opinion, you can look at it as broadly or as narrowly as you choose. It's really up to you. If you decide that you want to look at it narrowly, I'm not sure that it changes significantly what you consider. You'll still think that there are a significant number of positives associated with the application. That's at least staff's analysis. If you decide as a planning commission that you want to say, long-term, this fits in with what the plan says about economic development, and ultimately, and perhaps peripherally, this ultimately will allow the site in Tenor Town to be developed in a way that's compatible with the plans that exist here as well. It's also in keeping with your plan. Up to you, really. I'm not trying to force you one way or the other. I just think that ultimately, long-term, both of these things fit together pretty well.
We're allowed to consider a give and take.
Yeah, you can say, frankly, you can say whatever you like in a referral, you know.
Could I just add one thing to that, too? The existing use of the property is agriculture. If you look at the tax, what the taxes are being paid on that property are very minimal.
Yeah.
If you think about the new buildings that'll be built, you know, there's basically, well, there's about 18,000 feet of building on that property. It's going to definitely have an impact on the tax base. Hopefully not too much.
We'll talk about that.
I noticed I didn't mention any numbers.
later, Mike.
Yeah, right. But technically, I think there's, overall, there's a.
The reason this application is referred to our commission is because we have separate zoning and planning commissions in town. Okay, so zoning refers to us to consider it in the context of the POCD.
Correct.
So the POCD is a long, visionary, broad document, so I would have no qualms about using the whole POCD and other subsequent projects that might happen because of something that we're considering tonight.
Well, the term that you used is the broad look, and that's what we really want to consider here, I think. It would be a shame to move in a negative point of view on these two properties. It makes them both compliant. It helps Phonon because we'd love to keep them on. We don't want to give them a reason to move along, all things considered.
Well, at the end, it enhances that area because it's looked kind of rough for a long time. And
Well, it's all agricultural
Jim Barb,
down there.
Planchette's done a nice job over there.
Mhm.
The airport's done a nice job of keeping things going over there. And then Phonon being in there, and this just, it just leads it to whatever else, the remaining properties there. It almost encourages, you know,
Well, especially across the street.
yeah.
It's going to enhance that piece of property, and that's going to help, I forget the applicant, or the landowner there across the street who owns the repair shop. He
Yeah,
owns
Jim-
all that
Jim
property
Blanchett.
right down to
Jim Lynch.
Yeah.
Town Forest there.
He does, but he does not own, there's one building in between him and the community farm that he doesn't own that one.
Well,
I would say that, you know, it's really unusual in this case, that typically things don't fit together very well. You know, usually what happens is somebody wants to do something and then, you know, the other next property does not fit together well. So this is a sort of a remarkable situation that all the parties have agreed to work together on. So in that regard, it's unusual in that it fits together pretty well.
Any other questions? No. Gentlemen, do I hear any motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Sure.
I move that we return a positive referral on zoning application number 15-13 for 80 Walcott Road. And I would suggest that we do the referrals in two separate documents.
Sure.
Okay, it's two separate applications. So that is that's 80. And Hiram, I'm sorry, in accordance with the proposed wording that staff has presented to us, on the condition that it gets broken into two letters, please, Hiram?
Sure, absolutely.
And also, if you could add to number 6 of the 2B Simscroft property wording, item number 6, also include another reference in the POCD, which is that one I mentioned about the gateway, because I believe this will enhance the image of the gateway with what you proposed. So that's a future by design, POCD policy number 6.
Do Do I hear a second on the motion?
I'll second.
We have a second?
Was that Tom?
Yes.
And, sorry, and there's a typo in number 1, Hiram. Zone change will correct an existing non-conforming.
Right, sorry.
Any further discussion? Could we have a vote? All in favor of passing this referral?
Aye.
Amendment?
Aye.
Any denials? None? Hearing none, we pass it unanimously. Do we hear a motion on the second referral, which is number 1515 on the I-1 to I-2 for 90 Woolcut with Phenon Corporation. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to return a positive referral on zoning application number 1515 for property located at 90 Wolcott Road, contingent upon the same amendments to the wording as discussed in the previous motion.
Do I hear a second? Second. We have a second, Ron. Any discussion? I'd like to have a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone else? None? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Thanks, Mike, for staying in town.
The next item on the agenda is updates on status on ongoing projects. I don't know what we have there.
Basically, just want to ask if anybody has any questions about anything that they've either heard of or have any questions on. I'm happy to do it that way rather than sort of ramble around. We're in the process of the former Webster Bank building, hopefully moving forward. As you know, one of the partners, Jackson, obviously passed away, so they're in the process of reorganizing a few things and trying to make sure that that moves forward as well. So we're hopeful, we're still hopeful that that'll move forward this summer. So that's sort of typical. I don't have anything new to report on the Hartford. We are hopeful that that will move forward sometime before the end of the year as well. But that's the time that they've indicated to us that they'll probably leave more people out of the building. Now, there's still about 1,200 or 1,500 people in the building on a daily basis, so still a fair amount of people that are there as well. And I'm not sure, I haven't been on the south end of town this week yet, but we had a large meeting, a pre-development meeting on the 155 Hop the Pool Barn site as well. And that site development was to start this week as well. So there are two things there, obviously the convenience store, as well as the connection to the trail and so on, as well as the rehabilitation of the Pool Barn building. So that should be interesting.
Was there word on the CLNP property?
No, nothing new on that, Mark. You know, I assume you mean the CLP building itself.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I know, they still plan to move out of that particular facility. There's lots of discussions back and forth with the DPUC and so on, but I'm not aware of anything changing in that regard. As you do know, the PAD that was approved for the south end of that site is moving forward. They're in front of DOT now, so whether, how fast they move and whether they go forward right away or not is really up to them, but they're moving through the process, filing their subdivision maps and so on. So that process
Does Mark Greenberg own that
Yes.
CLMP lot as well?
He owns, the whole 60 acres built, the southern portion, the Northeast Utilities building, and then the northern portion as well, yeah. It actually was originally two separate parcels, and as you know, this commission allowed that southern parcel to be divided into three pieces. The two front pieces are commercial and will remain commercial under the PAD, so we're hopeful that people will begin to come in and start talking about that as well. As soon as some people start getting on that site and start using that site, I think there'll be more need for some of the commercial activities that are proposed or potentially proposed there. Whether they're small offices, whether it be small retail or small doctor's offices or financial offices or whatever, there's plenty of room for those kinds of things there. So,
Any movement in the commercial aspect of the Dorset crossing?
we haven't got anything else right now that I'm aware of. The medical center's still there, obviously, they're proceeding with those apartments. The MS building, the specialty housing building, is moving forward as well, pretty
When do
rapidly.
they expect that to be online?
You know, I think very shortly. They're talking to a number of people about moving into that building. They were very enthusiastic about the number of people that, unfortunately, need that type of facility. So I think that they've done everything that they could. They recently, as you know, donated that small strip of floodplain land in the back of their property to the town, so that's part of the town open space as well. Didn't change the shape of the development there at all, but they were anxious to move that forward because they wanted to start getting people in that building. So I would suspect that sometime before the end of this year to start getting people in that building as well.
No word on Big Y.
The word that I have from them, because I suspected that this might come up, and also the EDC on Thursday, is that it's not in their construction sequence for this year, so it's going to be 2016. That's the last word I have from them. I expressed concern to them and said that there are actually at least 3 projects that I'm aware of right now that are being held up because they're waiting for the Big Y to break ground. I don't think Big Y understood that, and they asked me, why is that? And I said, because people want to see some activity there before they go and do something on the southern 6 acres of that same piece, for example. So there are a number of things that are proposed, and I've seen sketch plans of, not seen any formal plans. I do think, though, probably before the end of the summer, we're going to see some, at least informal discussions about what could happen on that southern piece of that property as well. So that old house, for example, that's there,
Some of the extra buildings.
exactly, that small commercial building that's on the corner of Eli Place and so on, that's going to get a significant upgrade, things like that. But again, people are just kind of waiting for the shovels to show up for the Big Y piece for that to happen.
At our last meeting, Hiram, we went over the capital improvement project.
Yes.
And we were unsure about a number of them that were left off of the proposed referral letter. And I don't know if you saw the minutes, but we asked it to be put back on.
Yes.
Jeff Shea thought he knew what the reason was, but he wasn't quite sure, so he said to be sure, to be certain, let's put them back in, and if we need to make a change, maybe we could do that later. But could you tell us, why some were on, why and some weren't on the original letter?
2 things, Bill, I can tell you. One is I did have a discussion with Jeff after that meeting, and he assured me that would be put back on that letter. So that's number 1. The second thing is I can only tell you that it's probably different bond counsel than we've seen in the past, for example. So bond counsel's opinion in this particular case was that if they weren't a specific project, in other words, for example, like the one we talked about, WETOG, for us, that's a really important project, moving that forward. But they said, well, that's not really shovels in the ground, that's not really concrete, it's not really bricks, it's a planning project. So they left that off. And that immediately got my attention because I didn't care so much about what happens in engineering, but I was obviously concerned about it. But still, I was very concerned about what happened to ours. So I think it was just a difference in how bond counsel viewed that motion and what it ought to contain. But we did, in fact, add that to it after the discussion the commission had, and I thought that was a really good point to pick up. Absolutely.
One of the things I noticed on that presentation, there was a lot of, we're not sure if this is bonded or, there was a lot of confusion, and the presentation wasn't up to date and ready to go, I think, as well as it could be for us. And I would like to see a little better preparation next time. I understand the forces move quickly here and we had tight time frames, but I'd like to see a little better preparation and a better presentation that's a little more accurate from engineering on that.
Okay, sure. I mean, I'll convey it. I think a little bit in a way, Jeff probably wasn't as familiar with how it had gone in the past, and the way Rich used to do it. And, Rich would kind of go on and give you all the details you wanted, probably more. But yeah, I'll talk to him that you'd like to see more details.
And last year Jeff was new. I understand he stepped in really late in the process. I get that, but he's been on board for a while.
Sure, absolutely. And likewise, as far as I'm concerned too, not just to lay it on Jeff, but if there's anything from me that you want in terms of more detail or more information or research or whatever, please just feel free to let me know. So, happy to do that. One of the things that we talked about briefly at the tail end of the selectmen's meeting last night was the business development incentive policy that some of you may have seen. That's been vetted by the Chamber of Commerce Government Affairs Committee, by Main Street Board, the Economic Development Task Force, as well as the EDC. That's gone to the Board of Selectmen now, and there's lots of comments out there as to whether the policy that we're proposing is complete, whether it needs to be changed, whether it needs to be revised, or whatever. So if that's something that the board's interested in, I'm happy to get that to you. I think what the Board of Selectmen plans to do is to have some sort of a public forum. I'm not sure if it's going to be called a hearing or not, but some sort of public forum at their first meeting in June, and then probably not vote on it at that time, but then make some changes, whatever changes are necessary, and vote on it at the second meeting in June. So that's my understanding of that particular proposal. But if you're especially interested or want to know about what's going on with regard to the proposal for economic development, at least potential, it used to be called tax abatements, but it's more than that now. There are kind of three parts to that whole thing. So if you want to take a look at that, I'm happy to send that along. So if you'd like to, I'm glad to do that.
Please.
Yes.
The final document is actually really good. You know, when Hiram sends it out to you guys, you know, it's really well thought.
There's a lot of stuff I'll tell you about, and I'm walking on the fence here because the Board of Selectmen, some people think it's great, other people think it needs some tweaks, which is fine. You know, I'm just here to try to get it right. We spent a lot of time trying to dance to a lot of different masters here, and so it's challenging. Some people think that abatements are necessary in the business community today. Some people are concerned that we're going to set up some sort of dueling abatement programs. You know, for example, Farmington has an abatement program that they stated at a recent meeting that they don't use often. But I would simply say this to people: take a look at the tax rates in the various towns and compare us to Farmington and compare what the tax rates are. We need to figure out how to level the playing field. And so one of the things that this program attempts to do is to level that playing field. So if we're trying to attract a new business here, that, you know, they don't need Route 84, for example, or they don't need to be near Jackson Labs, or they don't need to be near the Farmington Medical Center, Yukon Medical Center. If they would consider coming here because they don't need that access, we need to figure out how to make it palatable for them to do that. We'd love to have a dozen more phone-ons coming to town, no question about that. So we need to figure out how to make that attractive for people, and that was the idea of that whole policy. So we're hopeful that people will support it. As I said, some people have made a number of recommendations. We hope the policy doesn't get gutted. We hope it gets made, viable so that businesses find it attractive. So, and I think that when the public hearings are held by the Board of Selectmen, I think it's going to be very important for folks with business backgrounds to come in and talk about, are these things important or not? There's no question that some people see these things as kind of what some news people call them today, corporate giveaways. But there's more to it than that. You know, if you get bricks and mortar out of things, it's not simply giving somebody some money to move into a store and then 6 months later they're gone. We're talking about things like infrastructure. We're talking about sidewalks. We're talking about different buildings and things like that. So that there are all kinds of built-in protections in this policy that allow the town to make a decision very carefully and very measured as to whether this is something that they want to see in town or not, and whether they want to offer an abatement for 2 years, 3 years, up to 7 years, as the statutes allow us to go. So take a look at it, see what you think, offer whatever comments you want, and we'll try to get it tweaked. As Bob said, I hope people do end up ultimately liking it. I think it's positive.
It reminds me of the coupons that you get in the Sunday paper. You know, 50% off, buy one, get 50% off. But an argument can be made that why don't you just keep the prices lower all the time, as opposed to enticing people with short-term, kind of incentives. So I know it's not current, it's not very glamorous at the moment, but it would make it very predictable for businesses. But I know that a lot of places expect to have some type of, I'll call it a discount.
Yeah, sure.
Well, you're competing with other towns.
Yeah.
And that's where the problem lies. You have to play in the game that's being played. If you stick to your guns, you're going to miss out. And we're looking at a long-term solution because short-term solution is nothing from nothing.
Yeah.
At least long-term solutions, they're adding, and most businesses, aren't picking up and moving every 2 years, every 3 years. They usually make 20-year commitments.
Well,
And that's fine if they have a piece of skin in the game.
Right.
I don't want to be giving something away for nothing. So I'm willing to give it to get that 20-year stay.
Yeah.
I'm cool, I'm good with that. But a lot of the tax incentives that I've seen across the state, they give something away, and in a couple of years, it's all gone.
Well, that's a little different.
Yeah, no, I understand, but, so if they have skin in the game, I fully support that sort of thing.
One of the things that we put in there too, Rich, you make a good point, is that we put a clawback provision in there. So for example, if they were to get a 2 or 3 or 5 year abatement, whatever it happens to be, and then they either leave before that's up, or they don't comply with the requirements, whether it's job creation or whatever it happens to be, there's a provision in there that allows us to get that back. So, and then how that happens is tricky, but what happens is the town attorney creates a contract. We don't have that in our current abatement program. The actual contract with the company is created by the town attorney and then ultimately voted on by the Board of Selectmen. So there's kind of a 2-step process here. They come in, they ask for it, they get a conditional approval, then they go to the town attorney, create this contract, and then the contract is ratified by the Board of Selectmen. So there's a lot of protections in here that we don't have in our current abatement policy. So I think it's a significant improvement in that regard too. But we're very conscious, as Rich said, about trying to make sure that the town actually does get what it wants to. It's a really delicate balance because you want to maintain the town and what people expect here. We have 32% of the town is open space. We're not interested in any huge large format retailers, no big boxes. We're not interested in that. That's really clear. Commissions have made that really clear. So what we'd like to get is some high-tech development and be attractive to them. We don't have I-95. We don't have the Fairfield County access to the city. There's no question about that. So what we're looking for, as our marketing consultant said, a couple of years ago, is a sort of smaller scale, high-tech. We'd rather have 10 firms with 100 people in it and try to attract another one with 2,000 or 3,000. It's just better for us in terms of our context. So that's what we're hoping to get.
Let's move on to the minutes of April 28th, 2015. Bill, you handle?
Sure. Okay, let's review the minutes from Planning Commission meeting April 28th, 2015. Starting with page 1. Anyone have any comments or proposed changes? Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Hearing no comments or changes, move to approve the minutes of meetings April 28th, 2015.
A second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain. I wasn't here, I haven't seen it.
Abstentions?
Abstention.
Rich. Okay, Rich and Kevin abstain.
Is that not to pass it?
Yeah, we have that.
Okay.
Yeah.
The motion passes.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.